Hey, Jim Kielbaso here, and I'm with Utah State strength coach Joe Powell, and I just kind of wanted to talk to him today about basically some scientific principles that apply across the board. I think anybody that's on social media or all over the internet looking for strength and conditioning information, we get inundated with opinions and people's ideas, and sometimes that's great. It adds a lot of variation, but I feel like we really need to know what scientific principles guide our training all the time. So I guess I wanted to ask you, Joe, like what is your overriding scientific principle that you think is the most important thing that strength coaches need to focus on kind of all the time?
You know, Jim, I think that's a great question, and one that's very, very important. And without hesitation, I think it's got to be just follow a simple linear progression with our athletes amongst all sports, amongst training programs. And
linear progression, or like, are you talking about systematic
overload.
progressive overload?
Just progressive overload.
Doesn't have to be necessarily every single day, but
we don't have to get too fancy with just a progressive overload. Just how do we get better? How do we get better at what we do, whether it's lifting, whether it's running, conditioning? And I think we get away from that. And I was given some really good advice from Mark Naylor when he was an assistant at the University of Michigan. I interned for him. And he told me, you know, when you think about college athletes, how do you classify them in terms of a training age? And you know, the quick, easy answer that everyone wants to say is, well, they're expert, they're advanced, you know, they're college athletes, they're here for a reason. And that's not the case, because the definition of training age, it's uninterrupted training. So if you look at a training schedule, where does a collegiate football player or a collegiate basketball player, where do they get uninterrupted training with us in the weight room? And the answer is they never do. It's always broken up. They're there for a sport, and the longest period they will be with us without having to give full attention to their sport is maybe 3 to 4 months tops. And within that, you know, we don't have to get terribly fancy. Maybe towards the end of their collegiate career, you know, they're going to stop making PRs every off season. But I think even with young athletes that you see, older athletes that I see, I think we just got to keep it simple and find a way to progressive overload, get a little stronger, let the nervous system adapt, and then, you know, let the muscular system respond. And then whether it's conditioning, how do we improve upon that? Just get a little better. So I always tell my athletes a little more and a little better every single day, and that's going to add up to something beautiful. Don't look at it too far away, just every single day, one day at a time, and we'll get to where we want to go.
Well, I know you said you were gonna then ask me what my principle was.
Yes.
And I wrote it down here, and it is also systematic progressive overload. You stole my thunder.
I absolutely did.
And I wanted to bring up the chapter that Mark Naylor wrote in the IYCA's Principles of Athletic Strength and Conditioning book. It was a fantastic chapter outlining how to program for athletes for long-term progress, and it was all about how to do a little bit more each day and when to ramp things up and when to pull them back. And I think systematic progressive overload is the key to everything that we do, whether it's speed training, conditioning, mobility, especially strength training. Everything that we do should be a constant little bit better improvement. And I know that a lot of people have referred to small improvements every day as Kaizen. And Kaizen is the Japanese word that they used in factories back a long time ago, that they were trying to make small improvements on everything. I think that can apply to us as human beings, but specifically to athletes, that little bit more each day. That's a great way of putting it. I think if we would just stick to that instead of worrying about, you know, doing crazy things every day, we'd be able to make more consistent progress for a longer period of time.
And you know, to add on that too, the other thing, the other secret formula to get better is simply, how do you recover? You know, sleep. Everyone loves sleeping, but they don't know how to do it. We don't know how to do it as a society. So if we can just add in just a little bit better, getting better every day, and then sleeping, recovering, you know, taking care of ourselves, the sky's the limit. So I think it's a two-part thing, but the stressor has to be there, whether it's just improving a little more stress every day, but then recovering the right way. I think that's huge.
Yeah, I think dealing with younger student athletes, if we could help them understand sleep a little bit better, that would probably make progressive overload a lot easier and more effective as well.
I think that would be effective for us as trainers too. We got to learn a little bit more how to take care of ourselves too, but that's another topic.
Yeah, all right, so start applying systematic progressive overload and get into bed each night.